Welcome back to Briggs on Books, our truly international talk show where we talk to authors from all over the world. We just finished up an author from Chicago. Yesterday we had Thailand, we had Canada, and New York City. So it's really exciting to talk to guests with such international backgrounds. Our next guest coming up, we're going to find out about her international background as well. But first, let me just introduce our next guest, Alysen Bayles. I should have asked you before we came on there, but where are you right now?
In Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City. Do they have a football team there, by the way?
Somebody said something about the Chiefs, but usually it gets talked about in terms of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce these days.
I think the Chiefs might go to the Super Bowl again this year. They won last year, so we will see.
We shall.
Yeah. Sports show. We're a sports show now. Now, you are an author. I'm going to just pop up your latest book here for a second. We'll talk about it a little later, but I just want people to know what's coming up. Cambridge and Clyde is your latest book. But let's start from the beginning. You started in Wisconsin, born and raised on a farm, cows, sheep, and especially horses. Tell us a little bit about the horse part.
Yes, so my mother raised Appaloosas, and she was actually a very talented dressage rider. I was not, but I did ride both English and Western, and so I helped her train horses, and we were on the show circuit for a number of years. At one point, we had over 200 horses and 400 goats.
400 goats,
it was quite an operation.
Those goats are very useful, no doubt. I had goats, so I know. Anyway, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in high school. Where?
So I was originally in high school in a tiny town called West Salem, Wisconsin, by the Minnesota border. But then I decided to go to Australia for a year, and I ended up landing in Canberra, Australia, which is the capital, and was fortunate enough to go to a school called Hawker College, what some people would probably consider still these days to be a prep school. And so I ended up graduating from there at 16 and then returned to the United States.
Was that a culture shock to go to Australia?
It was a wonderful culture shock. I loved the outdoors. I was totally infatuated with what I thought were koala bears. They're not bears at all.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much about Australia. Had some time that I spent with the Aborigines, which was really interesting. And the people that I stayed with were actually both professors at the University of Canberra. So they did a wonderful job of taking me around the country and introducing me to things that I probably would have never had the opportunity to do.
I have been studying the platypus, just in books and videos. Did you get to see one?
I did. I saw several platypus, saw lots of wombats, lots of wallabies. I actually had wallabies that would walk with me to school, which was quite an adventure. And it was a great time. I didn't particularly care for the magpies, but all the other animals I really loved.
I don't want to jump forward too fast, but next thing you know, you're in law school.
I am. So I had primarily been working in communications when I was at Drury University, a liberal arts school in Springfield, but then one of my professors suggested that I look at law school, so that's where I went, and I had some great opportunities in law school, and then ended up going in-house for a couple of different companies for a period of time before I went into private practice and litigated cases for more than 2 decades.
Amazing. Was that all in Kansas City?
No, actually, so I made my way back to Wisconsin at some point after I met my husband in Cedar Rapids, where I worked in-house for a Dutch-owned company. And then I worked in-house for another company up in Madison, Wisconsin. And it was actually there that I met one of the attorneys whose firm I joined, based in Kansas City, but he had a need for an attorney in their Springfield office. And my husband just happened to be with a company whose headquarters headquarters was in Springfield. So it ended up being a transition that we were able to make without a whole lot of difficulty at that time.
And then at some point, now you're writing these children's books. Is that after you ended your legal career?
No, actually, in the course of litigating cases, at least for me anyway, one of the most difficult things was having to wait for jury verdicts. So I tried over 80 jury trials, and I never particularly got comfortable with waiting for jury verdicts. While I'm a big advocate of the jury system, it just was always incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was just writing notes about kids and characters, and it was my way of dealing with stress. And then I finally finished my first children's book shortly after my mother passed away. And that was a long road to publication after many rejections, and it ended up getting published finally in 2020, the first year of the pandemic.
Was that Winston?
That was Winston.
Just happen to have the cover on the screen right now. Interesting. Nowadays, you think you get stuck waiting for a jury. People jump on their phone and do the TikTok or something like that. But what a great use of your time. And rewarding. It must be rewarding to have created a book. And I always tell people congratulations, because a lot of people can write books, but few can finish writing, put the pen down, and go through the whole publishing process and get it out there. So you did that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it is a long and difficult process, for sure. And it hasn't really gotten any easier with the next two.
Yeah. Now, I have the newest book on the screen now, Cambridge and Clyde. Tell us about that.
So I had this idea for this dog, which actually came out of a dog who is owned by the person who was the director of the Veterans Clinic at the University of Missouri Columbia Law School. And he was just is a hilarious dog. But at the time I first met him, he was sort of an out of control dog. And so I started writing about him, and I kind of had this idea about a girl, and I wanted to integrate my niece who's from Bogota, but couldn't kind of put it all together. And it was during the pandemic that I was in actually a very serious Zoom meeting with a gentleman for the first time, and I kept seeing this door in the background being pushed. So finally I just said, "Sir, is there something you need to tend to?" And he said, "I am so sorry. My daughter, I told her this is not going to take very long." And I said, "Well, why don't you bring her in?" And so she, of course, came right in, jumped up on his lap, and I said, "How are you?" And she said, "Good." I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Well, my name is Cambridge." And I said, "What's your favorite kind of cake?" And she said, "Cupcakes." And I said, "Oh, wonderful." And so anyway, we chatted for a while. And then once I got done with that Zoom and got home from work, I started putting all the pieces together and came up with the name Cambridge and Clyde.
Cambridge and Clyde. And what ages would this book be for?
So it's primarily 6 to 9. It's what some would call an easy reader. It has chapters, so to speak, fairly short chapters, but 6 to 9. And then several people have told me much older that they enjoy it primarily because of the dog. So, and I think anybody who loves dogs.
Yes. And I want to say to our viewers, if you have kids between 6 and 9, if you don't know this by now, your kids are going to go to dozens of birthday parties over the next couple of years. So what I like to do when my kids are that age is I go and buy 5 of the book. So I'm saying go to Amazon or wherever Alysen tells us and buy 5 copies of this, because it's fun when you send your kid to a birthday party, send them with the book as a gift, and then the kids start talking. "Oh, you have Cambridge and Clyde. Oh, you do too. We both do." Now they're talking about books at that age. Can you imagine?
That's a fantastic idea, Mike, and that's what we do a lot. And I have a lot of people now that reach out to me that say, I know somebody who's having a birthday. Can I get signed copies of your books because I'd love to have that at the birthday party.
Yeah.
So wonderful way to promote reading and a lot more.
Yeah, and also when my kids were little, they'd order these books for their grandma for her birthday. They give grandma the books, and then she got to read them to them. There's so many things you can do with these books. So don't buy just one; buy a stack of them, and that will be great. Now, also, you have some sort of work you're doing in literacy.
Yeah, so my mom was very passionate about literacy, and I think a lot of people may still think about literacy as the ability to read, which that certainly is one of the fundamentals, but it's so much more than that. And so, in the latter part of 2023, I founded an organization called Bayles and Bruce. And in part as a tribute to my grandparents who were wonderful and really understood all the foundations of literacy. And then also to my beloved granddog, Bruce, because Bruce has really been influential
Your
in
grand dog?
literacy, bringing
Grand.
grand dog,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Tell us about that now.
So, Bruce has really created a lot of dialogue with individuals. He's just one of those dogs that everybody loves when they meet him. And no matter how bad of a day you're having, Bruce will make your day better. And so that's the idea behind Baylis and Bruce. And we're hoping that at some point we can do some parking lot pop-ups with different activities to further expand literacy. We'd like to have stadium story time. So stadiums can't just be for concerts and football games, but they can be a great way to have stories and to have children and adults exchange a lot of ideas, which is fundamental to literacy.
Very good. We're way past time, Alysen, but you're fascinating. You've been through so many great things, and we have the website on the screen, baylessandbruce.com. Any last thoughts that you'd like our guests to know about?
No, I thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I welcome people to reach out to me, visit your indie bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. They all carry my books, and just really encourage people to read and learn. Thank you so much.
All right, Alysen, we hope to have you back again. I know there's a lot more coming from you in the future.
There is. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Mike.
We'll be back
Bye-bye.
with more Briggs on Books right after this.